Good afternoon. Welcome to our fall Ohigan service. We are fortunate to have with us today special guest minister Reverend Nagata. Reverend Nagata is the Director of Education for the Bukkyo Dendo Kokai America, in short, the initials BDK. It is also referred to as the Society for the Promotion of Buddhism, which is an international organization with headquarters in Tokyo. Reverend Nagata was actually a guest speaker here at Enmanji June of last year. So welcome again to Enmanji Sensei. Happy to see you again. Ohigan embraces our journey to the other shore of nirvana or enlightenment, away from this shore of impermanence, stress, and dissatisfaction. It is also a time of gathering together, paying respects to one's ancestors, and gives us the opportunity to reflect and renew one's efforts. We will now have a meditation reading. Please place your hands together in Gasho. Sensei will begin by striking the bell. Sensei? The ocean of birth and death, of painful existence, has no bound. Only by the ship of Amida's universal vow can we, who have long been drowning, unfailingly be brought across it. Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu. Please stand for our opening Nagata. It's going to be found in the purple book, Ohigan 1 on page 190. And please remain standing for the reading of the threefold refuge. So Ohigan 1, page 190. Please remain standing for the reading of the threefold refuge on page 10. Difficult is it to receive human form, now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the Dharma of the Buddha, now we hear it. If we do not cross over to the truth in the present life, in what life shall we cross over? Let us with sincerity and true reverence take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we, together with all sentient beings, awaken to the great way of enlightenment and to the unsurpassed intent of the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we, together with all sentient beings, enter the storehouse of the Dharma, becoming like the wisdom ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we, together with all sentient beings, become units in true accord in harmony with all things. The peerless, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rare to encounter, even in many hundreds and thousands of kalpas. Now we are privileged to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of the Nagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. We will continue now with San Bujo. That would found on page 24 of the book. And this will be followed by sutra chanting. And today's sutra will be Jusege on page 93. At this time, Reverend Nagata will present his Dharma talk.
Please join me for a moment of reflection, Gasho. If we just look ahead and do not look down, we're apt to stumble. To look at others and not to look at our own self is a terrible thing. Namandas. Good afternoon. Happy Ohigan. Thank you again for inviting me to join you after last year's fiasco and me being an hour late. I didn't think you guys would invite me back again. So I left 3 hours early this time from Denver. So I was here on time. And I followed GPS, and it took me a different way to get here that I had never come before. So I got to see a lot of scenery around here. But thank you very much for inviting me to join for your Ohigan service. I hope all of you had a great summer. I guess we're still gonna have summer this week, huh? It's still gonna be warm. And I hope you had a very nice Obon also. But with life somewhat back, I don't know if you call it back to normal in this post-COVID pandemic era, it's nice that certain things are back in our everyday lives, like being able to come to the temple. In our world, this summer we had the Paris Olympics, which were a success. And Shohei Ohtani continues to impress the world with his dedication, diligence, and his commitment to being the best that he can. And we also observed the 125th anniversary of the arrival of our Nembutsu teachings here in the United States earlier this month. But to begin this morning's or this afternoon's talk, I'd like to ask a question to all of you. And what does it mean to live with Namo Amida Butsu in the 21st century United States of America? What does it mean to be a Nembutsu follower here in the United States? We humans are really strange creatures when you think about it, of all the creatures in this universe. We consider ourselves superior to all other forms of life, and yet we are so unpredictable, we are so savage, we are so inhumane, we are unfortunately so untrustworthy, and we're so full of ourselves. Some religions claim that humans have been created in the spiritual, moral, and intellectual image of God. But I seriously and sadly doubt that we humans were born with the goodness or the compassion and wisdom of any God or heavenly being. Can you really imagine how much wealth is spent in this world trying to destroy those that we may despise or dislike? How many lives are taken, sacrificed, and given in the name of eliminating those with whom we do not agree? In less than 2 months, we will decide who will become one of the world's most powerful persons through our democratic system of elections. Elections are the backbone of what it means to live and to be part of a democratic society. And yet, why does it seem that elections have become so dirty and hateful in such a democratic and free society as ours? Candidates and politicians criticize, mock, and spread lies and rumors in order to build their own support. Vengeful and hateful rhetoric are every second occurrences before elections. To be honest, I think this is one of the most despicable times in a democratic society. But then, the day after the election, all this trash talk stops. And it stops until the next election cycle. But to me, it seems very sad that we have to base our own success on spreading lies to make others look bad. Why can't politicians stand on the merit of their own accomplishments and beliefs rather than spread lies about the opposition? It's unfortunate to say, but don't we sound like a sad species of life? Do we know of any other form of life that will go out of their way to destroy the life and dignity of others? If you look closely at the eyes of the Amida Buddha in the altar, you'll notice that the eyes are actually half closed. Many people joke it's because he has Asian eyes, but actually that's not the reason. The Buddha's image eyes are half open and half closed to represent the Buddha's desire to look outward, to see the real world, but at the same time, to look inward, to look and reflect on oneself. Rinryo Shonin, our 8th abbot, also taught us a very important life lesson. The faults of others are easy to see, but the faults of our own are difficult, if not impossible, to recognize. However, if one sees that he has a fault, he must realize that the fault must indeed be very grave for him to recognize it himself. Thus, he should take steps to correct his fault. Because it is difficult for us to see many of our own faults, we should listen to the advice of others. When I first read this lesson from Daniel, the faults of others are easy to see, but the faults of our own are difficult, if not impossible, to recognize. I thought, gee, I'm glad Daniel's not talking about me. I don't have any faults. But I can find 1,001 faults in anybody else. But can a teaching like this be more honest than anything else? The faults of others are easy to see, but the faults of our own are difficult, if not impossible. A long time ago, I had the opportunity to visit the former Japanese Naval Academy in Hiroshima, where my mom worked when she was young. And there's a museum at the Hiroshima Naval Academy about World War II. And it tells the story of the war from the Japanese side. And as an American, I saw that. And it surprised me that, wow, from their point of view, we Americans were the bad guys. Completely opposite of what you'd see here in America. It's the same war, the same participants, and yet two different, completely different stories or versions of the same event. Perhaps some of you have visited the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C., the collection of museums representing different aspects of our history, culture, and society. You can see the world's largest diamond, the Hope Diamond. You can see ancient dinosaurs, and you can learn about the history of our Native Americans or the contributions of African Americans to this nation's development. And one of the main museums is the Air and Space Museum, which has everything from the Wright brothers' first plane to the Apollo space capsule, and even a 747 and a Concorde plane as well. This museum collection is so large that there are 2 huge facilities housing all of the planes and spacecraft. But once when I was speaking at the Washington, D.C. Ekoji Temple, one of my Dharma friends there took me to see the Air and Space Museum branch, which is located not too far from the temple. As we entered the museum, I was somewhat nervous about what I was about to see. And as we approached one plane in particular, suddenly tears came to my eyes. And all I could do was place my hands together and bow in gassho towards the plane. Do you know what I was looking at? I was standing in front of the Enola Gay, the plane that dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima 79 years ago. To To be honest, I was overwhelmed at being in the presence of this very plane that killed over 140,000 people in Hiroshima, most of whom were fellow Nembutsu followers. But the tears in my eyes and my heart were because I was looking at the very plane that killed members of my own family. This was the plane that caused my beloved aunt to suffer through several bouts of leukemia before she died less than 20 years ago, some 60 years after the bombing. I have family and friends who continue to suffer the after effects of the bombing even today. And I know my good Dharma friend thought he was showing me a special and important piece of American and world history. But for me, this plane was the cause of so much sadness and suffering to my own family. Several years ago, I was asked to speak at the Berkeley Peace Gathering in honor of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki atomic bombings. And as I thought about what I would say, it dawned on me that the ideal of world peace, as noble an ideal as it is an impossible goal in this lifetime. In my message about the call for world peace, I stated that we must first begin with having peace within our own families, peace within our own communities, peace within our own circle of friends and acquaintances. If two spouses or partners can't get along, how can we expect the whole world to find and exist in peace? If siblings can't get along, if neighbors and fellow citizens can't get along, how can we expect there to be world peace? Recently, I saw a bumper sticker with wonderful words of wisdom. And these words are attributed to Mahatma Gandhi. And it said, "An eye for an eye, and soon the whole world is blind." An eye for an eye, and soon the whole world is blind. In many parts of our world, human justice is based on the theory of an eye for an eye. But for those of us who follow the Buddhist path, we have been bestowed with the blessed teaching of the Buddha's eye, the symbolic half-open, half-closed eyes, which teaches us to reflect inward as well as outward. The Buddha is teaching us to open the eyes of our mind and to break through the darkness of ignorance. In today's world, it seems as if everything has become so polarized. It must be either black or white, right or wrong, red or blue, left or right. There cannot be any in between. And it seems as if there's no room for cordial disagreement anymore. Either you're for abortion or you're against abortion. You're in favor of the Equal Rights Amendment or you're against it. You either like In-N-Out hamburgers with onions or you don't. There's no room for anything else in today's world. But the world can't work like this. In the Buddha's world, real situations aren't just right or wrong, good or bad, red or white. Each situation needs to be looked at, judged, and assessed based on its own merit, its own causes, and its own effects and realities. And as Buddhists, reflecting on our Buddha's eye, I hope we can seriously look at our actions and how they affect our lives, our families, our friends, as well as the community and the world we live in today. I'm right and you're wrong isn't right in the Buddha's world. Some people are always cold, some people are always hot. Some people can't see red and green. But that doesn't mean red and green doesn't exist in the world. Some people love parsley, others hate parsley. But that doesn't mean they're wrong either. The real world isn't as simple as red and white, right and wrong, hot or cold. For a moment, I'd like each of you to think about a fire. It's kind of hot today, so maybe we really don't want to think about a fire, but imagine a fire. For an unhoused person in the middle of winter, when the temperatures can dip below freezing, a fire can mean the difference between life and death. For firefighters, fire is the source of their employment and livelihood. But it can also be something very dangerous and life-threatening for them. For a chef, a fire is the source of heat for the food she is preparing to cook. And for this beloved old temple, our spiritual home, which is made of wood, fire is a constant threat to this building's existence. In each of these instances, it's the same fire, but from 4 different viewpoints. Each time, fire is something completely different. Whose view is right? Whose view is wrong? Each of these instances is right in their own existence, in their own world. There is no single right or wrong. And that is the reality we see in through the Buddha's eye.
Yeah.
Each of us think foolishly that we know the ultimate truth and what is real. But that in itself is a truth. And for those of us who walk the Buddhist path, we are fortunate to hear the Buddha's wisdom of how we should reflect on all aspects of life and existence. I wear glasses. Many of you also do. And if you're like me, when I take my glasses off, I have the hardest time finding where I left them. So I literally have to search around for another pair of glasses so I can put them on to find the original pair of glasses that I was looking for. But as I told you before probably, I'm a very poor Buddhist. And I'm lucky that the Buddha is always teaching me strange circumstances and strange events. Brian, open your eyes, open your heart, see the truth. And so when I take my glasses off, I can't see any of you clearly, but I can see blurry images. But then when I put the glasses on, I can see you very clearly. And for me, these glasses are like the Buddha Dharma. The Buddha Dharma is allowing us to see truth, to see our true selves. When I'm sleeping at night, maybe some of you have this too. When I'm sleeping at night and I can see shadows in my room, I see all kind of strange things. I can see burglars trying to break into my house. I can see someone trying to beat me up. And I can see all kind of strange animals in my imagination. But by putting my glasses on, I can see that none of those things really exist. And it's the same with the Dharma. Thanks to my glasses, I can see that the Buddha Dharma is what is teaching me what is real in this world. It's what gives me 20/20 vision. Now that I'm older, I think, what is the reason? Why was it that I was born into this world? Why is it that humans are born into this life? And finally, I've come to realize that each of us were born into this world to encounter Namo Butsu, so that we can be reborn into the Pure Land when the time comes. However, probably none of us really consciously think about this. I don't usually think about how wonderful it's going to be able to go to the Pure Land. But when you really, really think about it, it's the greatest gift that we have been given, the assurance that you and I will be born into the Pure Land. With this wonderful gift, this priceless treasure that we have been blessed with, how can we waste away precious lifetime? How can we spend time criticizing others or causing pain and suffering to others? We all know that there is enough suffering in this world as it is. And so as followers of the Buddha, we should be responsible for our thoughts, our words, and our actions, and not cause more suffering in this world. As Buddhists, we should try and instill a sense of peace, security, and contentment for all life. The world and society which existed during Shinran's lifetime 850 years ago is no different than our 21st century society. We still see people suffering, we see illness, we see people in despair, we see crime, we see war and hate. Shinran realized that we are driven by our own ignorance and blind passions. Our very human existence is overwhelmed by our endless greed, anger, and ignorance. Shinran Shonin devoted 20 years of his life to try and break the endless cycle of the three poisons, but to no avail. But it was his very wretched greed, anger, and foolishness that brought Shinran to Namo Butsu. And it's the same for us. We can try with all our might to end our own greed, anger, and foolishness. But if you're like me, there's no hope. I can't live without my greed. I can't breathe without my anger. And most certainly, I can't think without my foolishness. But thanks to Shinran, we know the Amida Buddha is calling out to each of us. Don't worry, don't worry. Come as you are. Come with all your greed, come with all your anger, and come with all your foolishness. Just come. And what could be more wonderful than knowing that we are perfectly accepted by the Buddha just as we are? So our great challenge in life is, how do we express our great expression of endless gratitude for the Amida Buddha's great promise? Well, I think the best way should be that we each try to live each moment of our life with our Buddha's eye. Our thoughts, actions, and spiritual foundation should be to be as fair, as compassionate, and as empathetic to all life as best as we can. So, as we observe this Ohigan season, I hope we'll all try to open our Buddha eyes and let's see the world through our Buddha's eye as best as we can. Please join me in Kashu. The light emanating from Amida Buddha shines everywhere throughout the worlds of the 10 quarters, grasping and never abandoning the followers of the Nembutsu. Namo Amida. Namo Amida. Namo Amida. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sensei, for your inspiring and thoughtful message. You really touched all of us. Thank you so much. Please stand for our closing gatha in the purple book, Ohigan 2, page 262. Please be seated. Do we have any announcements?
Good afternoon. This is not really an announcement, but just to bring to light that Sensei, being affiliated with BDK, if you notice in the latest Wheel of Dharma, they were among the highest donors to the Endowment Foundation, and I just wanted to recognize that and acknowledge it. Thank you so much, Sensei.
Thank you, Diane. Are there any more announcements? If not, we'd like to thank again Reverend Nagata, for your Dharma message. Thank you to George Thao for sending up the Ohigan and ringing the concho to start the service. Thank you, Dr. Kent Matsuda, for playing the organ. And thank you to the September Toban for the flowers and offerings. Light refreshments will be served in the hall after the service. And for those of you who have not had a chance to offer incense, please do so before leaving the home door. Thanks again for everybody's attendance today. Thank you.